I don't know. I just felt like my providers were really just being judgmental, right? And I think identity is still a big part of you. If that's your hair, if it's your eye color, if it's the way you dress, whatever it is, like that's your identity. And I think that just because you get cancer, you shouldn't have to stop caring about that.
Hello everyone, welcome back to MANO Beyond Cancer. I am Carmen Monge, and this is a space dedicated to all people with a lived cancer experience. In here, we share our experiences and we learn about this journey called life. Welcome back to MANO. Today we are with Rebecca Muñoz, that she's going to tell us a little bit about her. Hi Rebecca.
Hi, Carmen. It's so great to connect with you again.
Rebecca, who are you? What are you passionate about right now? And what is your favorite food?
Okay, so Rebecca Muñoz. I live here in Austin, Texas, in the US. And I'm right now very passionate about just continuing my patient advocacy. I do work in patient research, specifically on patient experience. I really like to see what it's like for patients to go through various experiences. And it's interesting because living here in Austin, my favorite food is Tex-Mex, which I don't know if a lot of people are like familiar with that outside of Texas, but it's like a spin of like Mexican food that's kind of Americanized in Texas. So, I mean, I love it.
How was to have cancer in the US and how was your experience?
I will say that knowing, like when I went through it, I didn't really know anybody else going through it at the time. So for me, the experience was like what I thought everyone experienced. And then I met others around the world, you included, that have experienced cancer in different parts of the world. And it's interesting because I went through a lot of challenges. And I think that in the US, we have a lot of privileges. I mean, while healthcare is so expensive and we have insurance and things like that, if we're lucky enough to have insurance, I still faced a lot of barriers that I can't even imagine what that's like to go through in different parts of the world where we don't have certain protocols or guidelines and other policies in place. So I will say like what I hear a lot of other like people that have gone through cancer to say is like I'm lucky or I was grateful to have this and that, but it still had its challenges. I think that one of the biggest things I faced, and I think what started me on my advocacy really early, was that I was met with a lot of resistance about the things I cared about at the time. And one of those things was saving my hair. And I remember a nurse at my very first appointment to learn about chemo laughed at me and said, you should care about wanting to live, not your hair and not what you look like. And it wasn't about what I look like. It was just a sense of identity, right? And I think that that's when I first started learning about, whatever it is that's important to you, even if it was just my looks, like what I care about is what I care about. I don't know. I just felt like my providers were really just being judgmental, right? And I think identity is still a big part of you. If that's your hair, if it's your eye color, if it's the way you dress, whatever it is, like that's your identity. And I think that just because you get cancer, you shouldn't have to stop caring about that.
Do you know many cancer survivors and how can you describe them in one word?
I do. It's a community that I think embraced me. I'm not sure how it was for you when you got diagnosed, but I know that when I got diagnosed, I immediately like turned to social media. And it was for a couple of reasons. Like I wanted to see what people were saying, like how they were experiencing chemo. For me in doing scalp cooling, there wasn't a lot of people that were doing it. So I was trying to find other people that did it and understand like how they were, doing, how they were carrying on with their lives and integrating, like having treatment, how they were managing side effects. So that's how I found a community. And then when it comes to scalp cooling, I think this is really what opened the door for me to meet a lot of cancer survivors is that I really was trying to connect with others like myself that really didn't know what we were doing. Like we were trying to learn from each other. And so I ended up starting a support group because there was just not a lot of information online at the time. I feel like it's just this community that embraces you and continues to grow. Like you collect people over the years, you meet people that are newly diagnosed and you like take them under your wing so that things don't feel as scary. And then you meet like people, you maintain friendships with people you met years ago and you're just like, oh my gosh, you just celebrated like 10 years. Congratulations. And so I would say describing them in one word is like resilient.
Did you have a side effects that actually you liked about having cancer?
I had like a really hard time with chemo. And so cancer itself felt like I felt very hopeless. Like I think I was pretty hard on myself because I would see people that would get diagnosed and even on treatment and they'd still maintain a job and going to work and still trying to like go walking and work out. And I was not one of those people. But I think when I came out of it, I would say that what I was kind of grateful for, kind of like a superpower that came out of it, was just all the time I spent in doctors' offices, in hospitals, and all this really taught me how to navigate the health system. And I think that equipped me to help others that are going through similar situations. And so I'd say like that's my superpowers. Like I stayed really persistent.
What is the stupidest thing or dumbest thing someone have ever told you about having cancer?
Oh gosh, there's so many things. I'm like, what do they call them? Like cancer muggles, I think is like the term or their nickname. If you follow the cancer patient on Instagram, they share about that a lot. If you don't, I highly recommend. I love their content. But yes, I think again, I think that when you're kind of open and out there with your diagnosis, it's both things, right? You get the good and the bad. And I remember like I announced that I had the diagnosis, but not not for attention. It was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need your advice. If you had a sister, mother, grandmother that went through this, whatever, please share like what you did, what they did. And I remember I was getting great stories about, seek out mental health right away so that you can stay on top of that. And your mental health is just as important as your physical health. So I got a lot of that. But I also got like DMs and messages about like, well, you shouldn't be drinking Cokes and having sugar and maybe you had too much alcohol in your life and that's why you got diagnosed. And so it was those things like I think some of the dumbest things that I heard were kind of like the blaming. Like there's no way for us to know how we got a diagnosis.
And what changes would you like to see in your community that will support cancer survivors and cancer patients?
When you get diagnosed, it kind of opens up Pandora's box. And for me, that was the case because I think I was really reflecting on just what it's like to exist. I had to be met with like, am I gonna die? Am I gonna live? And so that brought a lot of emotion that I don't think as a 29-year-old I was prepared to handle. And I think that if they're gonna offer support just early and often, and mental health can be a lot of different things. It can be like going to one-on-one therapy, but it could also mean like going to a peer support group with other people that get what you're going through, other cancer survivors. And so just other things to help you find meaning, connection, peer support, but just not just the physical or clinical aspect.
Do you remember one personality trait or something that you were like this before having cancer and that you're still like this after cancer?
I think I was a little bit more reserved before cancer. I was quiet. I'm still quiet. But I think that it really gave me a voice because especially like I had to use my voice for myself, but then when it really mattered for other people, I think I got excited and I think I saw like a fire get ignited inside of me.
And one last question.
Yeah.
Do you recommend the cold caps? Like, do you think that is a treatment that everyone can use it?
I recommend it for anybody that has an interest if they have the resources to do so. And if they don't, there's a lot of options to explore to find resources to get it. But I do recommend it just because it's worth trying because if it doesn't work out, there's no harm done.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Do you like this video? Well, give it a thumbs up and subscribe and share it with others. Thank you. Bye bye.